Good morning everyone. Today is 7th of October and welcome to the Hindu newspaper analysis discussion. So guys, let's start with the discussion. In the video, we'll be taking up the entire analysis of the Hindu newspaper. We'll see the articles along with their background as well as the way forward in the articles. Meanwhile, I would like to remind you that you can please download the explainer PDF from the Telegram channel. In this explainer PDF, I have provided the notes of all the articles that you can follow along with the video in order to get a better understanding in the articles. You can download it from Telegram channel. The link has been given in the description box in YouTube. Moreover, you can visit the Telegram and can search there by typing Thinking Palette by Sahil. Now, before starting up with the detailed discussion, let's see the brief overview over the newspaper so that we can understand that which articles are important. Now, this is the page number 1 and the first article. It talks about the World Bank's prediction about the India's growth rate in the financial year 2023. We'll see this particular article. Then the Nobel Prize in Literature has been given. Okay, so the Nobel Prize in Literature we'll see. After that, moving on in this particular direction, 9 killed in a bus accident in Kerala. Not very much important, such kind of things with respect to the examination. Fine. UN Council rejects the debate on the Xinjiang. So the United Nations Human Rights Council session has happened. So we'll see this particular article there. Then moving on in the regional section. Okay, so the advertisements, the tenders and all such kind of things have been given. Not at all important for your examination. Okay. Then 7 years after a clerk's gruesome murder, not important article for your UPSC examination. Fine. So moving on guys, and directly we'll be reaching to the editorial page. Before the editorial page, the important news are not there. Now, in the editorial page, the first article, domestic ideologies in external setting. A good article. Basically, the article is talking about that what is the India's priorities right now with respect to the international relations. Strengthening the CSR framework. So very good article with respect to the GS paper number 4, corporate ethics. We'll see this article. Then moving on, don't lure, persuade. So this article talks about the recent election commission of India, which suggested some of the reforms in the manifesto. We'll see this entire article. Then no longer bizarre. So guys, this particular article talks about the Nobel Prize that has been given into the physics that we already have discussed in much detail in the yesterday's newspaper also. Then in India, is India in a bind over its relationship with the Russia? So we'll see this particular article also with respect to the India's foreign policy. In China, fire without smoke. So guys, this is a notebook article. In the notebook article, the writer gives some of their own personal accounts. The article is not important for the examination, so no need to go too much into the detail. Then moving on. After that, is it time for the gig economy? So here the concept of moonlighting we'll see. Fine. Then the Indian made LCH Prachand and its significance. So recently the LCH Prachand has been formally inducted in the Indian Air Forces. So we'll see that. Then moving on. Serial killers in film, not important article for your UPSC examination. UK Home Secretary links FTA to concern over the immigration. We'll see this article with respect to the India-UK relations. Fine. Then guys, the political articles etc. have been given. No need to go too much into these articles. Fine. The same kind of a thing is continuing. Then moving on, cough syrup exported only to Gambia. So recently we have seen this particular thing that one of an Indian pharmaceutical company exported the cough syrups to the Gambia, where there were many children died after consuming these cough syrups. Okay, so the investigation on that particular case is going on. Fine. However, you don't need to go and follow that which company exported which kind of cough syrup, what happened. Okay, we need to see that how these basically when such kind of things are there. This article is not important, but you need to understand that India at the same time happens to be the biggest generic drug manufacturer in the world, but at the same time the counterfeit basically spurious inferior kind of products are also there. Then can read talk Vyomitra. So we'll see the Vyomitra with respect to the examination. Supply constraints dented coal biomass mixing. So guys, just I think 2 days back, we have seen this particular thing that 5% target of mixing the biomass pellets in the coal power plants have not been met. Fine. So the supply chains have been the reason in that particular thing, it has been said. Then moving on. Ex-policeman kills 22 children. So this is a really gruesome incident that has happened in the Thailand. Then India abstains on Sri Lanka vote on UNHRC. We'll see this particular article with respect to the examination. Then guys, other articles, they are just the evolutionary and the basically such kind of things are there. Not very much important for the exam. Then the service sector growth slows to 6-month low PMI. Fine. And then guys, the other corporate trends etc. has been given. They are not important. And then we have the sports page. Okay. So this is guys the overview of the entire newspaper. And now let's discuss all the relevant articles one by one in the detail. Okay, let's start with that. Now, in every class, we start with a GS quotation that can be used in one of our papers. Fine. So, today we'll take the quotation from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So, Bhagavad Gita, it says that through selfless service, you will always be fruitful and find out the fulfillment of your desire. Now, guys, the Bhagavad Gita has explained the idea of Nishkamta, had explained the idea of the Nishkamta. Now, the Nishkamta or Nishkam karmas are the selfless karmas, the actions which are done without the rag, dvesh, and moh. Without the rag, dvesh, and moh. Rag means a kind of an attachment, dvesh means a kind of a hatredness, and moh means a kind of a delusionment. So the actions done without the rag, that is the attachment, dvesh, that is the hatredness, and moh, delusionment, those actions are the selfless actions, those actions are the nishkam actions, and these nishkam actions are the ones that will fulfill all the deep rooted desires. So this is the actions that one should strive for. And when we talk about the ethics, in the ethics also, when we talk about the moral conduct, what are the most desirable moral conducts? The conducts which are done without any self involved there. Guys, this particular idea can be utilized effectively in GS paper number 4, ethics, in GS paper number 4 ethics. Okay, fine. So this is all about the GS quotation for today, and even in the essay you can use this particular idea. Now let's take the first article. So the first article, guys, will be taking about the Nobel Prize in the literature that has been announced. Now from the past few days, we are discussing these Nobel Prizes. Okay. So guys, this particular article can be seen with respect to the prelims examination. It can be seen with respect to the prelims examination, as well as in the GS paper number 3, the Nobel Prizes can also be asked. Now, before going in this article, I will give you a little bit of background so that you can make more sense of this article. Fine. So, we have seen this particular thing that now the Nobel Prizes are being given, and in the Nobel Prizes already we have seen that the Nobel 2020, the Nobel Prize in Medicine has been given. That was for the clean DNA technique, already we have discussed that. Then the physics, the Nobel Prize for the quantum mechanics was given, we have already discussed it yesterday. Chemistry, the Nobel Prize for the click chemistry was given, and this already we have discussed in the yesterday's newspaper. So guys, first of all, if you have not seen the yesterday's newspaper, that is the 6th of the October, please go and watch the physics and the chemistry Nobel Prize that we have discussed. And before that, the Nobel Prize in the medicine was discussed on the Tuesday. Okay, now let's take first of all a brief overview about the Nobel Prizes, and then we'll come to the Nobel Prize on the literature that has now been given. Now, let's discuss first of all the brief background. So guys, when we talk about the Nobel Prizes were originally, they were given into the 5 categories, that is in the field of physics, chemistry, physiology or medicine, literature and peace. So these were the 5 categories in which the Nobel Prizes are being given. But after this, there is one more category in the Nobel Prizes that has been added in 1968, that is the Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences. Now this particular Nobel Prizes is given, basically it was announced by the Sveriges Riksbank, that is the Sweden's central bank. Now understand this particular thing, that when we talk about the Nobel Prizes, fine, the Nobel Prizes are given in the memory of the Alfred Nobel, who was a Swedish chemist, engineer, industrialist and the inventor of the dynamite. Okay, so out of the fortune that the Alfred Nobel collected, out of that money, this Nobel Prizes are being given. Originally there were the 5 categories, and then there was the 6th category that was added by the Sveriges Riksbank, that is the Sweden's central bank. Is it clear or not? So this was something that had happened. Now when we talk about these Nobel Prizes, fine, the Nobel Prizes, it is in the Sweden, all the Nobel Prizes are given except the Peace Prize, because the Peace Prize is given into the Norway. So all the 5 prizes will be given in the Sweden, and the Peace Prize, it will be given into the Norway. Please keep these particular things in your mind, because such kind of questions can be asked in the prelims examination. Then basically these are the academies which actually presented the Nobel Prize. So the Nobel Prize in Physics, Chemistry and Economic Sciences, it is presented by the Royal Swedish Academy of Science. Then Nobel Assembly at Karolinska, it presents the Nobel Prize for Medicine, Swedish Academy presents the Nobel Prize for Literature, and Norwegian Nobel Committee, it gives the Nobel Prize for Peace. Is it clear? So these are the committees which are actually handing over the Nobel Prizes. Then you can just pause the video, or you can just download this PDF, and here I had given the list of people who have an Indian connection who got the Nobel Prize. Is it clear or not? Why I am using the word Indian connection? Because the name of the Rudyard Kipling, 14th Dalai Lama, okay, Ronald Ross has also been there, which have an Indian connect. Then moving on. So as now the Nobel Prizes are being asked, every day one Nobel Prize is being given. Okay, so basically on the Thursday, the Nobel Prize in the literature has been given. Okay, so I told you that already up till now, the 3 Nobel Prizes have been given, that is in medicine, physics, chemistry, and the fourth one that now we'll discuss is in literature. Okay, you can watch the 6th of October newspaper analysis, where I have discussed the physics and the chemistry, and you can see the Tuesday's newspaper analysis. Just a minute. Yes, you can see the Tuesday's newspaper analysis, where we have discussed the medicine. Now, literature. So the Nobel Prize in the literature, it has been given to the French author Annie Ernaux. Now guys, the Annie Ernaux, she has been given the Nobel Prize particularly for the memoirs that she has written. Now let's understand that what are the memoirs. Okay. Now what is a memoir? A memoir means a personal account that a person writes. For example, something happened with me in the past. For example, when the lockdown was imposed in 2020, what I was doing during the lockdown, or what I witnessed during the lockdown. For example, I saw that how the people were feeling helpless. I saw this particular thing, that how the people were gasping for the medical oxygen, for the basic medicines, etc. So memoirs, a person write on the basis of their memory of the past. So they recollect some of the past incidents. So basically it has been said that the Annie Ernaux, her way of presenting the memoirs is such that she unroots all the basic emotions, she unroots all the vulnerabilities of the humans. Now understand guys, I will highlight as what has been announced by when she was given the Nobel Prize. So it was provided that just a minute. So it has been provided that okay, fine. So it has been provided that, just a minute. She had offered one of the most subtle, insightful windows into the social life of the modern France. So the way she has presented the memoirs, she had given a kind of an insight that what people feels, what people think, okay, and what the social life in the France looks like. Moreover, she has also written the novels which are very simple kind of novels. For that also she has been recognized. Now when we talk about the Annie Ernaux, she started her writing career with a novel, and that novel was named as Cleaned Out. Now this novel came out in 1974, and in this novel she had written the account of the abortion that she underwent when she was young, and when the abortion was not legal in the France. So the Cleaned Out was one of her novel. Then after that she had written other novels also. For example, The Frozen Women, fine, and there was A Man's Place. Now this Man's Place was a memoir, and after The Man's Place 1983, she had written many of the memoirs, and one of the most popular works of the Annie Ernaux, they are A Woman's Story, which she wrote in 1987, Simple Passion, and A Girl's Story, which she wrote in 2016. Now when we talk about the Annie Ernaux, so this Nobel Prize is again very special, because she is the 17th women writer who have won the Nobel Prize, okay, since its inception in 1901. So post 1901 the Nobel Prize is being given, and since then she is the 17th woman. Now the women who have been given the Nobel Prize in the literature in the recent past, they are the Louis Gluck. Just a minute. So Louis Gluck, who was given the Nobel Prize in 2020, Olga Tokarczuk, who was given in 2018, and Svetlana, okay, Alexeyevich, who was given in 2015. So she is the 17th woman who had won the Nobel Prize, and there are very less number of women who had won in this category. So this is important. Therefore, you need to pay little bit attention on this particular thing. Fine. So guys, I hope that you have understood it. Okay, and Ravindranath Tagore ji also got the Nobel Prize, okay, so in the category of literature in 1913. Fine. So that is all about this article, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Okay, is it time for the gig economy? Now, this particular article, guys, is actually talking about the moonlighting phenomena. Okay, so we'll discuss this moonlighting phenomena, which actually this article is talking about. But actually, what does this word gig economy means? Okay, so let's discuss this particular word little bit, and then we'll move in the in the substance of this particular article. By the way, this article will be important in GS paper number 3. Article will be important in GS paper number 3, that is the issues with respect to the Indian economy, and how the COVID-19 pandemic had changed the employment patterns in India. Okay, now before going in this article, guys, what do we understand by gig economy? Now, the gig economy is that particular sector of economy where the relation between the employee and the employer are not permanent. Is it clear? Employee and employer are working on per assignment basis. I'll give you one small example, and by that example you'll be able to understand. For example, guys, I am making this YouTube video. Okay, now suppose I want to make some another kind of a video, I want to record a video, and I want somebody that they should edit my video. So I'm looking for an editor. I can contact some person who is a professional editor. I'll ask this person that you please edit my video, and for that particular video I'll pay you some money. Okay, you just edit one video for me and I'll pay you that particular money. Now you see, I am particularly here a kind of an employer, and this particular person that I'm hiring is my employee. But do we have any permanent relation? No. Do I be paying him some kind of a salary? No. After his assignment will be over, he can work somewhere else, as well as simultaneously also he can work at multiple assignments. So the gig economy is that particular sector of economy where the employee and employer don't have a permanent relation. There are the freelance kind of a work that is doing. At one time I can hire multiple people, and the people, they also can work at multiple places. So guys, when we talk about the gig sector, okay, today these gig sectors are becoming, they are booming. Okay, so today there are many of the websites where you can find such kind of gigs, where you can find such kind of an assignment, and per assignment basis you can be paid. Now let's come to this particular article. So basically, guys, this article actually, it's talking about moonlighting phenomena. So name of the article is gig economy, but throughout the article moonlighting is being discussed. Now what is this moonlighting? Now the moonlighting, it is a phenomena where an employee who is employed full time is working somewhere else also for the remuneration. For example, let's take this particular thing. Suppose this is Mr. A. Now the Mr. A is a full-time employee of a company Wipro. Mr. A is a full-time employee of a company Wipro. But and let's say his office timings are 9 to 5. Now after 5, this Mr. A is also taking some side assignments. For example, he's taking some assignments where he's building the websites, okay, where he's building certain Android apps, etc. So he is doing some part-time work also after his office hours are completed. So basically, as it is done into the evening hours, into the moonlighting, so therefore it is called as a moonlighting phenomena. So in one very simple line, moonlighting phenomena is a phenomena where people are taking another job, a second job, after their formal working hours have been over. Now, basically, this moonlighting phenomena has become very, very prominent into the pandemic times. Why? You understand this particular thing, that when the pandemic was going on, the people who had the desk jobs, okay, either, now see, suddenly the lockdown got imposed. Many of the companies were not able to transition to the work from home. They were not able to transition into the digital sphere. So therefore the people were not having much kind of a work. So they started to look for something else, and they found that this could be the way which can be carried even after their offices resume. Moreover, guys, understand this particular thing, that now with the coming of the pandemic, what has happened, the work from home phenomena has become mainstreamed, and therefore the people even now have more flexibility. When they were in office, okay, obviously they cannot do some other work, but when they are now in the home, the employer doesn't even knows that what they are doing. Is it clear or not? So with the coming of the work from home phenomena, people now got more flexibility, and as they got more flexibility, they can do multiple jobs at the same time, and therefore the moonlighting, it is increasing. Okay, now moving on, basically recently guys, a survey was done by the Kotak Securities, okay, that how many people are doing moonlighting, and the Kotak Securities found that at least 60% of the 400 employees, so 400 employees were surveyed, out of that 60% they said that either they are doing moonlighting or they know someone who is engaged into the moonlighting. So moonlighting has increased so much in the now that 60% people are doing this moonlighting thing. Now, recently, the companies, what are their reaction? So, for example, Wipro have terminated, Wipro have sacked 300 employees when they found that they were doing the moonlighting for the rival firms, okay, for other companies. Wipro said that it was leading to the conflict of interest, and because of this conflict of interest, they are removed these people. At the same time, another IT company, that is the Infosys has warned their staff against the moonlighting. They say that they should not moonlight. And at the same time, the Swiggy has, however, Swiggy has supported the moonlighting, and they had come out with the moonlighting policy. And in this moonlighting policy, the Swiggy had said that their workers, they are free to pursue their passion for economic interest along with their full-time employment. Okay, so the people who are working with the Swiggy, they are allowed to do the moonlighting. So we find the corporates that actually they are divided in two parts. The corporates, they are divided on two parts. On one hand, the corporates, they are allowing the moonlighting, for example, the Swiggy, and on another hand, there are the corporates who don't allow the moonlighting. For example, you have the example of Wipro, and we have the example of Infosys. Now, why there are the reason whether the moonlighting is fine or not fine? Now, you see this particular thing. There are arguments on both the sides. Basically, it is said that moonlighting is good. Why? Because when an employee is working after their office hours, by that particular work, the employee will learn new skills. Okay, employee will learn basically kind of a new techniques, and these skills and techniques can be used in his formal employment also. And in the formal employment, that particular worker will become more productive. Second reason that has been given is that many a number of times, the employees are underpaid. And as they are underpaid, this second job that they are taking might give them a kind of a financial security, and by that financial security, the employees will be more happy, the employees will feel more confident. Okay, and the third thing that has been provided is that it is a matter of choice. Of the employee. Okay, so once his formal working hours are over, after that formal working hours, whatever that employee wants to do, we should allow them to do that particular thing. We cannot stop them, because at the end of the day, under the when we talk about the fundamental right, the right to freedom has been given to them. Okay, but on another hand, there are the criticisms which say that the moonlighting is not correct. Number one, it is being said that it leads to the conflict of interest. Okay, now you know this particular thing, that there are sometimes much of the cutthroat competitions that are going on, particularly into the IT sector. So let's say an employee in a Wipro is working on a kind of a secret kind of a project, but let's say after the office hours he also work for the Infosys. What can happen? The confidential information can be shared. Okay, that particular thing will happen. Is it clear or not? So therefore, it might lead to the conflict of interest. Second thing, guys, it has been provided that actually if a person is taking the two jobs, one is a regular job and other is a moonlighting job, the employee will be more tired. The employee will face more of a fatigue, and by that tiredness, by that particular fatigue, the employee might not be able to perform in any. Neither the employee will be able to perform good in the formal employment, nor he will be able to perform good into the moonlighting job that the person is taking. Thirdly, it has been seen that many number of times that the resources that are being given by the formal organization, those resources are being used to do the moonlighting job. For example, let's take that a person is doing a formal job, and a laptop has been given, let's say, by the TCS to him. Okay, laptop has been given, internet has been given, and all the amenities have been given by the TCS. Now by these amenities of TCS, a person is using to do some another kind of a job. So obviously it is injustice, it is a kind of a misuse of the resources, it is the misuse of the resources of the corporate. So therefore there are the divided views. One side it said that moonlighting is good, on another side it said that moonlighting job is bad. So we don't have one clear answer in this particular direction. On both the sides we have the viewpoints. Now let's see, do we have guys, one point is that the points that we have discussed on both the sides, that is the criticism as well as points in the favor, please note down these points separately because they are not given in the article. So not given in the article, so therefore please note down them separately. Now do we have the law on the moonlighting in India? Fine. Now understand this particular thing, that as of now the moonlighting is a very new phenomena and it has not been explained in any of the law in India. Okay. However, we have the Factories Act, and the Factories Act talks about with the phenomena of the double employment, and there is section 60 of the Factories Act which provides that there is a restriction on double employment. A person cannot work at two places, but this is Factories Act, so it means that it will be applicable only onto the factory workers. But what about the offices, what about the other workplaces? They will not be covered into the Factories Act, so therefore it only covers the factory workers. Then guys, there are many of the state level legislations which have talked about these particular things. For example, there is the Tamil Nadu Shops and Establishment Act 1947. Now the Tamil Nadu Shops and Establishment Act is applicable on the offices, banks, shops, etc. But in this particular act there is no provision about the dual employment. So Tamil Nadu Act is applicable on offices, banks, but they don't mention about dual employment. Factories Act mention about the dual employment, but it is only applicable onto the factory workers. So as of now there is no detailed law about the moonlighting in the India. Now, Supreme Court has given one judgment in this particular direction. So, Supreme Court has given the judgment, that is the Glaxo Lab Limited versus Labour Court. And in this particular judgment, Supreme Court have provided this particular thing, that the sphere of employment cannot be extended by the employer beyond the working hours and outside his place of employment. Now, what it means? In very simple word, it means that the employee can choose to arrange his affairs as he pleases beyond the working hours. In simple terms, after the working hour, the employee is free. Whatever the employee wants to do, the employee can do that particular thing. If employee wants to work, wants to moonlight, they should be allowed. If they don't want to moonlight, it's their own choice. So the corporate cannot force a worker after their formal office hours have been over. Okay. Now therefore one can be the conclusion in this particular kind of answer. So conclusion is that the employers should not suppress employees, that okay, you should not do work there or you should not do outside, and at the same time the employees should not violate their agreement with the employers. So confidential information should not be given. Moreover, the resources of your formal employment, for your formal job, should not be used for the moonlighting. Fine. So at both the end, the employee as well as employers need to understand their respective responsibilities, and in a responsible manner it needs to be done. Is it clear or not? So that is all guys about this particular article, and it is a very good article. And these articles which are giving a kind of a fresh perspective on Indian economy, they are many times asked in the examination. Is it clear or not? So guys, I expect that a question on such kind of a line can come. So please be very careful on this. Now we'll move to the next article. But before moving into the next article, let's take some of the doubts that are being asked. Okay. Sir, increase the size of the font in PDF. After taking photocopy, the size of the font becomes very small. Dear, if I'll increase the font size, then that particular write-up will not be coming on the single page. Okay, so many times there are the 2-3 page that are given. So I'll advise you that please save a soft copy and try to zoom that out. Okay. Sir, please include the previous year questions that we can understand. Okay, I will try to include that also. Is IT sector a gig? Guys, understand this particular thing. IT sector is a gig or not? Gig is a phenomena where there are no written agreements, where the people are working on the freelancing. Now suppose I am working in an IT sector. I am a software engineer and I am, let's say, working for the TCS. Okay, now the TCS is my formal employer. They are giving me salary and they are asking me to come from 9 to 5. It is not a gig job. Gig job is anywhere where there is no, where the people don't have any written agreements. They work on assignment basis. Okay, at one point they can work for multiple number of people. That is the gig, where assignment basis work is being done. It can be in any sector. Okay, fine. A question has been asked in gig economy. Yes, question has been asked into the gig economy. Ola, Uber, yes, they are example of gig economy. Fine. Okay, so I hope that all the doubts are clear. Now let's move to the next article. Okay, the Indian made LCH Prachand. Just a minute. The Indian made LCH Prachand and its significance. Okay, let's discuss the article. This article will see with respect to GS paper number 3. This article will see with respect to the GS paper number 3, the topic of indigenization of defense. The topic of indigenization of defense. Okay. Now, let's discuss the article. So basically, guys, the Prachand, the light combat helicopter, LCH stands for light combat helicopter. So LCH Prachand has recently been formally inducted into the Indian Air Forces, and as it has been inducted into the Indian Air Forces, the LCH Prachand becomes important. So we'll be discussing all the issues, all the technical details of the LCH Prachand that can be important for the examination. Fine. Now, first of all, Prachand, it is a twin engine light combat helicopter. Combat helicopter means that this helicopter can be used into the war or can be used into the situation when the confrontation with an adversary nation is going on. This particular helicopter has been designed as well as developed by the Hindustan Aeronauticals Limited. Now, this is something very much important, because when we talk about India, India happens to be one of the largest importer of the defense weaponry in the world, and by that particular thing, India's lot of foreign exchange is going for the defense imports that we are doing. So therefore, we want to build the indigenous capabilities, and in this particular direction, as it has been designed and completely developed by the Hindustan Aeronauticals Limited, it is letting India move towards the Atmanirbhar Bharat. Okay, then when we talk about the Prachand, it is a 5 to 10 class dedicated combat helicopter. Okay, so 5 to 8 ton class helicopter means that this, at this particular capacity, it can fly. Now, it was conceptualized after 1999 Kargil conflict. Now, when we talk about the Kargil conflict, the Kargil conflict was fought at a very high altitude, and after 1999 war, it was thought, it was envisaged that there might be again the war in the Ladakh sector, there might be the war around the LAC, line of actual control. Fine, there can be the war around the Siachen glacier. Okay, so the line of actual control, Siachen, Ladakh sector, they are at very high altitude, and we need to have the dedicated class of combat aircrafts, particularly the helicopters. Now you see, helicopter have a particular kind of an advantage, that is they can take off and they can land they have a lot of flexibility with respect to the taking off and landing. Fine, which the traditional aircrafts, fighter jets will not have. So we needed to have the dedicated helicopters in this particular line. And when we talk about the Prachand, LCH Prachand, it is the only attack helicopter in the world, which is an achievement for the HAL, that it can take off at an altitude of 5,000 meter, that is a 16,400 feet. So therefore, it can operate ideally around the areas of the Siachen glacier. So this is an achievement for the India. Okay, such a high altitude operation can be done effectively. Moreover, at the same time, as I told you, it is a combat helicopter. It has a lot of capabilities. For example, it can fire air to ground as well as air to air missiles. Okay, air to ground as well as air to air missiles. Moreover, when we talk about the LCH, what kind of weaponry it is armed with? It is armed with a 20 mm nose gun, 70 mm rockets, anti-tank guided missile Dhruvastra, air-to-air missile. Okay, I told you that air-to-air missiles can also be targeted. So air-to-air missile Mistral 2, it has it can also operate. Then it has the stealth features. What are the stealth features? Now you see this particular thing. Stealth features give a kind of invisibility to an aircraft from the radars. Okay. Now you see this particular thing, that suppose a helicopter or a kind of an aircraft is going in the territory of the adversary nation. Okay, so their radars can pick up their location. So stealth feature will give a kind of an invisibility that they'll not be tracked into the radars, they'll not be tracked into the into the tracing equipments of the country. They'll not literally become invisible, just in these radars or in these equipments their footprint will not be very much clear. So they have reduced radar, they have reduced infrared signatures, they have crash worthy features. For example, if the helicopter crashes, there is improved survivability. Now basically the crash worthiness of the aircrafts, okay, or the helicopters have become very important, because a few months back the first CDS of India, General Bipin Rawat, died in an helicopter crash. So the crash worthiness happens to be a very important feature. Then, at the same time, by the induction of the light combat helicopter Prachand in the Air Force, it has been called as a big boost to the combat power of the armed forces. Okay. Moreover, the LCH Prachand will also be inducted in the army as well. So IAF and the army, it will be inducted. Okay, now I have discussed already that it has it has anti-tank capabilities and all those kind of things. Further it can be deployed to perform the combat search and rescue operations. Okay, so rescue of the civilians in some kind of a situation, or rescue of the military personnel in some kind of a dreaded situation, it can be done. Bunker busting operations. So many a times the adversary, the terrorist, they make the bunkers and they take a refuge under the bunker, so that the bunker can also be busted. Fine. Counter insurgency operations into the jungle and urban areas. Now when we talk about the in the central part of the India, there is the Naxalist activities that are going on, and many times these Naxalists, they are operating from the jungles, such kind of territories. So in the jungle, fine, as well as into the urban areas, fine, these LCH Prachand can provide a ground support. So this is, guys, all about this particular article, and very holistically all the details about the LCH Prachand has been covered here. You don't need to go beyond the scope of what we have discussed here for your examination point of view. However, if you have some special interest, you can read, but for the exam, beyond this, you don't need to go. So that is all about this particular article, and now we'll move to the next article. Now, so this particular article, strengthening the CSR framework is a profitable idea. Now, this article will be important for GS paper number 4, corporate ethics, GS paper number 4, corporate ethics. Within the corporate ethics, there is a topic of corporate social responsibility that comes. So in the corporate ethics, CSR, GS paper number 4, this article is important and a very, very good article for the exam. Now, let's discuss the article. Fine. First of all, what do we understand by the idea of the corporate social responsibility? So let me give you some background first. Okay, what do we understand by the idea of corporate social responsibility? Now you see that when we talk about any corporate, let's say it is an industry, it is any company, so corporate uses the resources of the society. Corporate uses the resources of a society, the land, the water resource, fine, every resource of a society is being used. Now, a corporate will lead to, whenever a factory, for example, is operating, it will lead to some kind of externalities. Okay. Now these externalities could be negative externalities or it could be positive externalities. Negative externality means the negative impact a corporate will have on the society, and positive externality means the positive impact the corporate will have in society. Now negative externality could be examples, for example, the pollution. The pollution is a negative externality. The degradation of land, it is a negative externality. The degradation of the water resources, it is a negative externality. Obviously, when a corporate or a factory has to be deployed, the people will be relocated, people will be uprooted. That is a negative externality. Positive externalities could be like that the job creation will be there. If the corporate will be operating, it will make profit, then it will also be contributing into the taxes. These taxes will be used to bring the social justice. So every corporate creates the negative externality as well as a positive externality. Now, as the negative externalities are there, so therefore the CSR has a responsibility that it needs to pay back to the society for the negative externalities, for the negative impact that it had led to. Okay, externality simply means an impact. externalities simply mean an impact. It could be a positive impact, it could be a negative impact. So if there is a negative externality, the CSR, the corporates need to pay. Okay, so therefore an idea of the CSR comes. Now let's discuss little bit CSR more in more detail. Now in India, the provisions of the corporate social responsibility has been listed in the Companies Act. So there is section number 135 of the Companies Act 2013, and under this section 135 the CSR provisions have been provided. Okay, now first of all, what will be, how the CSR or what amount of CSR will be paid, which company will be eligible for the CSR. So basically, as per the provisions of the Companies Act, there are the three conditions. Out of these three conditions, if any one condition will be fulfilled by a corporate, they have to pay some of their profit as a CSR. Now what are these conditions? Number one, if a corporate has a turnover of 1000 crore rupees, if a corporate has a turnover of 1000 crore rupees, second condition, or they have a net worth of 500 crore rupees of more. Okay, so either turnover of 1000 crore rupees or the net worth of 500 crore or more, or and the third condition is a profit of 5 crore or more. So if any, just 1, 2 and 3. Again I'll repeat. Condition number 1, turnover of 1000 crore or more. Condition number 2, net worth of 500 crore or more. Or condition number 3, net profit of 5 crore or more. If you are fulfilling any one condition out of that, that corporate will come under the purview of the corporate social responsibility. Now a particular part of their profit they have to pay towards the corporate social responsibility. Now what amount of the money they need to pay? So guys, it is 2% of their average net profit in the previous 3 years. Okay, so whatever their average profits in the past 3 years are there, net 2% of that it has to be made. Is it clear or not? Fine. So 2% of the profit, 2% of the profit, which is to be calculated onto the basis of last 3 years average, which is to be calculated onto the basis of the last 3 years average. So 2% of the profit. Is it clear or not? Fine. So this is something that they have to pay for the CSR. Now every corporate, they have to constitute a CSR committee. CSR committee. Now this committee will recommend the corporate social responsibility policy. Corporate social responsibility policy. For example, where the company will be spending. Now guys, the company can, the corporate can spend in many number of things. For example, for restoration of environment, they can spend money for tackling some of the deadly diseases such as the HIV, AIDS, etc. They can pay the money for social justice program, girl education, all these programs, the money can be spent. So where one particular corporate will spend money, for that they have to have a CSR committee which will bring the corporate social responsibility policy. Is it clear or not? Now this is actually a very good thing that in the past, after coming of the CSR Act, now I want to tell you one more important thing in case if you don't know. India happens to be one of the very few countries in the world which have legally mandated the corporate social responsibility. Now guys, in most of the countries there is no law which specifically puts a legal responsibility, and even before 2013 we did not had such kind of a legal mandate. Okay, now basically it has been provided that in the past the CSR spending in India has increased. In the past, CSR spending in India has increased, but at the same time there are many of the corporates which are not doing their responsibility in completeness. Now I'll give you some examples. So the article provides that there are several companies in 2020-2021 with the zero spend on the CSR. Fine, there are many companies which have not spent even a single rupee in the CSR. After that, there are more than 3,200 companies, to round it off, around 3,300 companies are there which have spent less than the prescribed limit of 2%. So I told you that 2% of the profits are to be spent for the CSR. So more than 3,200 companies, fine, 3,290 companies, they have spent less than 2%. So this is something that is happening. After that, it's provided that there are the many private companies which have registered their own foundation, their own trust, and they are transferring that 2% of profit to these trusts. For example, let's say there is an XYZ corporation, and this XYZ corporation formed their own trust. Okay, now the 2% of profit is being transferred to their particular trust. Now whether this particular trust will spend the money for the societal welfare, or will that trust will pay back that particular money to the corporate by some indirect channels, we don't know that particular thing. Moreover, in the law also it's not very clearly provided that whether a corporate can provide the money to their own charitable trust or not. That is not very much clear, but many of the corporates are creating their own charitable trust and they are providing them money to them. This is also something that's happening. This is also that is something that's happening. Okay, so this is, guys, the issue that's coming here. Fine. Now at the same time there are many problems even in the design of the CSR Act of India. Now what's the problem? Problem number one, guys, see, the basic argument that is provided into the CSR law of India, it is this, that the companies need to spend the money in the area where they are operating. For example, if a corporate is operating into the Maharashtra, they need to spend their CSR into the regions around the Maharashtra. If a corporate is, let's say, into the Karnataka, they need to spend their money into the regions around the Karnataka where they are operating. That is logical also. But see, today when we talk about the major corporates, they are concentrated in only few states. For example, according to a report by the Ashoka University, fine, Ashoka University's Center for Social Impact and Philanthropy, they say that 54% of the CSR companies means those companies which are contributing into the CSR, 54% of them are concentrated in Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Gujarat. Is it clear or not? So therefore, most of the CSR spending is going on only in these four states, that is the Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka and Gujarat. But you know that there are many other states which are populous, which have a lot of people and which need a lot of developmental funding also. For example, there is the Uttar Pradesh, there is Madhya Pradesh, there is Bihar. Now Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, there lot of developmental money is needed, but because corporates are not there, CSR spending in these particular regions is not happening. In this particular direction, there was a high level committee that was constituted, and it observed in 2018 that local area of emphasis is only discretionary and a balance has to be maintained. Fine. For example, an arrangement could be made that, for example, a corporate is in Maharashtra, let's say 50% money it will spend in Maharashtra, and the 50% money it will spend in other poorly developed regions of other states. Fine. So that such kind of arrangement should be made, but as of now it is not happening. So this is one problem in the CSR law in India. Then the next issue that comes here is that, guys, actually what's happening? Basically, for example, there is a company called as XYZ corporate. Let's say that there is an XYZ corporate. Now the XYZ corporate said that, okay, we had made the profit of 100 crore rupees, and out of the 100 crore rupees, 2% of the profit is to be used for CSR. Okay, so we have kept aside a 2 crore rupees separately. This 2 crore rupees will spend for the CSR. Now when the audit will happen, it will be seen that whether these 2 crore are spent or not. But it is not being seen that whether actually this 2 crore is the 2% part of their profit or not. What if their profit was much more than that? Are you getting it or not? Basically, I'm talking on this particular thing, that actually what happened. Fine. As per the technical guide on the accounting, which is issued by the Institute of the Chartered Accountant of India, a company is only required to mention its CSR spends, non-spends, underspends and overspends in the notes to account. Fine, what they have spent in the CSR, what is overspent, what is underspent, okay, just only they have to mention. Fine. Even an auditor who is auditing the account of the corporate, it can investigate only the details of spending. Fine, that where you spend the money, what you procured, what services you give to the people. Okay, most can question about its authenticity. However, the auditor is not mandated to qualify the accounts for non-compliance or inadequate CSR performance. Is it clear or not? So you will just tell that, okay, we have spent, overspent, underspent, or this much amount money, but whether that money was commensurate to your profit or not, that thing is not done by the auditors. Is it clear or not? So this is a kind of a gap into the CSR. Now there are some of the way forwards that have been given in the article, and these way forwards are very, very important for our examinations. Even in the examination, UPSC asks you to give the suggestions. Fine. Now, number one, number one, it's being said that first of all, we need to create a national level platform, fine, which is centralized by the corporate affair ministry. Now, in this particular platform, the ministry can provide the potential CSR admissible projects. Is it clear or not? For example, now the different states are there. For example, Maharashtra is there, UP is there, MP is there, okay, Chhattisgarh is there. Okay, just see it 1 minute. Chhattisgarh is there. Now, different state governments will put details that, okay, what CSR admissible projects they have. For example, UP will put a list forward that, okay, we have 50 projects in which the CSR funding can be done. The Madhya Pradesh will say that, okay, we have, let's say, 40 projects in which the CSR funding can be made. So there should be a platform. This particular platform should be operated by the Corporate Affairs Ministry, and in this particular platform, just a minute, I'll highlight. In this particular platform, okay, in this particular platform, the states can list their potential CSR admissible projects so that the companies can assess where the CSR fund would be most desirable. So this is something that's to be done. After that, guys, it's also provided that we can also take the help from the Invest India's Corporate Social Responsibility Project repository. Now, what is this repository all about? So guys, this repository is a database specifically which have the CSR projects which can be taken up particularly into the 112 aspirational districts. Now, what are the aspirational districts? Aspirational districts are those which have a very poor socio-economic indicators. They have poor IMR, poor MMR, poor child mortality rate, etc. So therefore, in the states where there are the poor socio-economic indicators, those in the states, those districts are called as the aspirational districts, and we have 112 such aspirational districts. These aspirational districts are identified by the MPs under the Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana. Now, the Invest India's Corporate Social Responsibility Project repository contains the CSR projects within these 112 aspirational districts. Is it clear or not? So this is something where from where a reference can be taken as where the money should be spent. Then moving on. After that, it's provided that companies need to prioritize environmental restoration in the area where they operate. Fine. Obviously I told you that the corporate, they are emitting the pollution, they are emitting to the smoke. So for the environmental restoration, they need to spend the money. Then after that, recommendations of a high-level committee in 2018 should be incorporated into the current CSR recommendation framework. So I told you that in 2018, just a minute. So we have seen that in 2018, a high-level committee came, which provided that this local area emphasis needs to be reduced. Now, this committee also gave one more recommendation. It provided that there should be the better reporting mechanisms, enhanced disclosures, fine, project locations, implementing agencies, all needs to go for the third party audits. Now you see this particular thing. I told you that the corporates are spending the money, but we don't know whether that money was commensurate to the profit that they have made or not. Sometimes under reporting is there, sometime underspending is there, sometime underspending is there. So therefore, you need to see this particular thing, that better reporting norms, better compliances norms should be there. Third party audits should be there. There should be the chartered accountants who are not interested into the corporate affairs. They should audit that particular thing. Fine. So again, I'll highlight this particular thing. First of all, let me erase it. So what have been suggested by the 2018 high level committee? Basically, we need to strengthen the reporting mechanisms with enhanced disclosures concerning the selection of project. You need to tell why you selected this particular project. What is the significance of that particular project? We need to tell the locations where the money will be spent. Implementing agencies who will spend the money. Okay. Mandatory independent third party impact assessment audits need to be there. What is impact assessment? Now, let's take one example. Suppose a corporate has spent 100 crore rupees for the education, for the education. Okay, now you need to show that what impact came by spending these 100 crore rupees, how many people actually became educated. So this is the impact assessment that is to be provided. Now, moreover, it's provided that actually the state government many a time are also running the schemes by themselves also, for example, scheme for sanitation, water supply, education, fine. And at the same time the corporate are also working into the same thing, so that this leads to a duplication. So the areas where the state is doing work or where the state is doing good work, fine, the corporate need to find another areas where more focus is needed and where the government efforts are not, where government's effort are not leading to lot of fruits, fine. And then CSR non-spends, underspend and overspend should be qualified by an auditor in the audit report. Okay, and finally it's being provided that the Ministry of Corporate Affairs along with the line department need to exercise greater direct monitoring and supervision over the CSR spend. So Ministry of Corporate Affairs need to have a mechanism by which they can see whether the corporates are spending in a wise way or not. So this is something that's to be done. Is it clear or not? So this is all about this particular article, guys, and this is a very important and a very exhaustive article for the CSR issue. Fine, so that is all about it, and now we'll move to the next article. But before that, let's take the doubts if there are any. Okay, I wish I stumbled upon this channel earlier. Thank you so much, dear. Sir, please mention in every article before discuss that they belong to which GS paper, because I'm making note. Dear Vibha, I discuss it in every article. Even in this article, we have discussed that it will be important for GS paper number 4. Clear? Earlier article we discussed that it is important in GS paper number 3. So already we are discussing in every article as where it will be important. Okay. Is a center free to choose any area where the CSR money is to be spent, or the state which has provided basically where the money is to be spent, it is decided by the company, not the state or the government. Okay, so the company chooses where they want to spend the money. Fine. So I hope Bhavna it's clear. Now we'll move to the next article. Is India in a bind over its relation with Russia? Fine. Now this particular article will talk, in this particular article we'll discuss that how the Russia, India, China triangle is going on, and how India is trying to balance its relation with the different camps that have been developed right now in the world. This article will see with respect to GS paper number 2. GS paper number 2, international relations. Okay. Okay, so recently what has happened, we have seen this particular article in a lot detail in our newspaper also, that India has participated in the 77th United Nations General Assembly session. Okay, we have participated recently into the United Nations General Assembly session. This is one thing that happened. Presently, we are also participating into the United Nations Human Rights Council's 55th session. So 55th session of the UNHRC we are participating, and before that we have also participated into the session in the UNSC. In the UNSC also we have participated. Now, what happened when we participated in UNSC? When we participated in the session of the UNSC, what happened? India abstained from voting at the United Nations Security Council. Okay, what that voting was for? The voting was carried against the Russia for conducting the referendum where it has annexed the Ukrainian regions. Okay, now understand this particular thing, that basically right now the Russia-Ukraine war is going on. Okay, so right now the Russia-Ukraine war is going on. Russia-Ukraine war is going on. Now, in this Russia-Ukraine war, basically what has happened, Russia has captured many of the territories of the Ukraine, and in these territories, Russia had carried some of the referendums. Now, this is called as it is a violation of the international law. And in the United Nations Security Council, a resolution against the Russia was floated. Now, in this particular resolution, India has abstained. India has not voted. Neither India has supported Russia nor India has criticized. So, India has taken a madhyam marg in this resolution. Now, moreover, at the same time as the Russia-Ukraine war is going on, fine, as the Russia-Ukraine war is going on, there are the many of the Western sanctions that are being imposed on the Russia or on the countries who are supporting the Russia. Now, during the same time, when the sanctions are being imposed on the Russia by the Western countries, India has continued its oil and defense relations with the Russia. India imported the oil. Moreover, right now, if you know this particular thing, and when we have discussed that India is procuring the S-400 Triumph missile system. India is procuring the S-400 Triumph defense system from Russia. That deal has not been cancelled. Fine, we are taking the delivery of the S-400. So, oil trade and the defense trade entirely is going on. Fine, this is something that is happening. So, therefore, the relations with the Russia are being strengthened up, and at the same time with the USA also we are trying to maintain our relation. Now, basically, right now, as the war in Ukraine is going on, it has been said multiple number of times that the Russia and China has come closer because of this particular war. Because China considers USA as its adversary, China considers USA its adversary, and Russia also considers USA as its adversary. Okay, so both consider the USA's adversary, and therefore they have come together. Okay, but we need to understand that this is not something new. That now, because of the Russia-Ukraine war, the China and Russia had come together. It is going on since the end of the Cold War that happened. So since 1991, this particular thing is going on. Fine. Now, even now, though that is also true that they have linked more tightly together, okay, because of many of the factors that had come. Fine. Now, the Russia-China alignment is there because of the combination of factors. Number one, Russia's exports of defense equipment to the China also that is happening. Energy ties between the two countries that had happened. The understanding of the multipolar world. Fine. The rise of the American paranoia. American paranoia means that basically Russia and China thinks this particular thing, that if USA will be important, then never they can become the superpower. So there is a kind of a paranoia. At the same time, there is a phobia towards the China. USA also is having a fear against the China, that the China might challenge their hegemony in the future. Okay. After that particular thing, understand this particular thing, that there is a question that's coming. Okay. China, it has not endorsed Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But now you see, we say this thing that the China is going near to the Russia and China is supporting to the Russia. But at the same time, formally China has not endorsed the Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But it has said that they are taking a kind of a neutral position. And this neutrality is a lot more inclined towards the Russia. Fine. They have been supporters of Russia's action in many ways. According to the China, Russia has been the one who had seen the aggression of the USA. And therefore, China says that we are sympathetic to the Russia. So, in a way, the China has accepted the Russia's narrative on the USA's, where Russia always say that USA acts as a big brother. USA is intimidating the Russia. That narrative has been accepted by the China. Moreover, China has also accepted the Russia's narrative, where it has been said that West is primarily the cause for what is happening into the Europe today. Now, why the Russia-Ukraine war started? Because Russia had a threat that the Ukraine might join the NATO, that is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So Russia says that the USA and the West brought the NATO in the backyard of Russia, and because the NATO was brought into the backyard of Russia, Russia is now resisting the aggression. So therefore, Russia says that we are not at mistake, West is always intimidated, and China has accepted Russia's narrative that is going on. Fine. Now, what is the India's stakes in all this particular thing? So basically, guys, India is trying to balance multiple alignments at the same time. Now you see this particular thing, that at the same time India is participating in multiple alignments. For example, we are participating with China and Russia in the BRICS. Okay, so into the BRICS, fine, there are the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Then the SCO. So recently the SCO summit was held and India had participated, the Prime Minister has visited the SCO summit. Now in the SCO and BRICS, both China and Russia are present. At the same time, India is also maintaining the balance with the West also. For example, we are hosting the G20 presidency for the 2023. We are participating into the quadrilateral security dialogue. Along with that, India Pacific Economic Forum, we are participating. India Pacific Economic Framework, we are participating. Secondly, guys, recently I2U2 initiative was started. I2U2, it stands for India, Israel, US, UAE. So in the ITU2 initiative, India had participated with the USA. Okay, so in all these initiatives, India had participated. Okay, but when the relation with the China comes, when the relations with the China comes, you see this particular thing that India is differentiating between the bilateral and multilateral engagements. Bilateral and multilateral engagements. Now, when the multilateral engagements are, for example, the engagement is there in the SCO, the engagement is there into the BRICS. These are the multilateral engagements. We are participating, even though China is there. But with the China, bilateral agreements we are not taking. One-to-one interactions with the China we are not doing. Why? Because we have said this particular thing that until and unless the LAC, line of actual control confrontation that is going on with the China, China will not pull back from there. China will not reduce their confrontation, will not do any one-to-one relations with China. So multilateral relations are going on, but bilateral relations they have put on a kind of a pause, and we have said that first of all there is a need of restoration of the peace and tranquility into the border areas. Then only will be focusing upon. Is it clear or not? Then guys, moving on. Now, when we talk about Russia, Russia has a sense of history and destiny, so it will continue to insist on the agency of international affairs. Okay. At the same time, fine, there are many circumstances that are also compelling the West also. So right now you see this particular thing that when we talk about the Russia will need more and more partner. Okay, and this particular situation which is right now going on, it will continue for the time where the Russia will have its own priorities, USA will have its own priorities. Fine. So just we need to follow the developments that are going on. Okay, so that is all guys about this particular article. Fine, I hope that you have understood it. So you need to see that these articles are very important, and as it tells us the trend right now going into the world politics. Fine, now we'll move to the next article, but before that guys, let's take the kind of questions if they have come there. Okay, analysis is important for mains, prelims. This discussion is very important for CAPF. Guys, see this particular thing. Aspirants, I just want to address one particular thing very importantly to you guys. See, there is an artificial distinction that has been made in the prelims examination as well as into the mains examination. You think that the current affairs for the prelims examination is different and the current affair for the mains examination is different. Guys, understand this thing that Hindu doesn't publishes two copies, that okay, this Hindu is for prelims and this Hindu is for mains examination. Every day before we start our discussion, I show you the overview of the entire newspaper, and page by page we see that okay, what articles have come, and every article is being taken up. Now you see, even if you go to the prelims examination, do you think that the kaun banega crorepati type of questions are being asked into the prelims examination? No. In the prelims examination, the conceptual questions are being asked. Okay, the questions from the international groupings are being asked, okay, which we discussed almost every day into the editorial page. So please don't make a kind of an artificial distinction that okay, prelims current affair is something different, mains current affair is something different. Please first of all go and see the previous year papers. In the previous year papers, you'll find this particular thing that the questions asking even into the prelims examination, they are highly conceptual. Without the conceptual clarity, you cannot understand this particular thing. And at the same time, understand this particular thing. Please avoid the fear of missing out. This is a kind of an unnecessary fear that has been created by the big the big players in this UPSC field. Now you see this particular thing. I will just take 1 or 2 minutes. I will just take 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, not more than that. Basically, guys, the business always works on, particularly when we talk about the business always works on giving the consumer an impression of FOMO, that is they are missing out something if they are not consuming the product. Today the Apple launches their iPhone and Apple creates a kind of a hype. Apple creates that if you don't get the iPhone 14 Pro, you are missing on something, and everybody is in the lines, they are buying the iPhones. So always the business creates an environment that you are missing out. The same thing happens into the UPSC. In the UPSC today, so-called proclaimed big institutions, everyone, they are creating a fear that okay, you'll miss this. But you see the papers today, they want a conceptual understanding. Those factual questions are not coming. Even if there are 2, 3, 4 factual questions that are coming, now they are such questions which are entirely meant that you are not required to attempt them. So understand the basic psychology. Fine, guys, you are going to become an administrator. Administrators' critical thinking skills are important, and that is something which is tested in this examination throughoutly. So don't become a kind of a ratification machine that okay, today this anniversary was celebrated, today this particular person's 78th birthday was there, 80th birthday was there. So understand this particular thing. Fine, try to understand the correct psychology that is needed in this examination. Fine, so don't be under that particular FOMO that simply one thing has been mentioned in one XYZ website, this is important. You just follow the original source. Newspaper is the original source. Just follow the newspaper, fine, and see on that particular thing. Okay. Moving on, sir, you mistakenly skipped page 6 of the PDF. Okay, just a minute, Akash, no page has been mixed. Okay, so what is there? We are going to discuss it. I think you are talking about this domestic ideologies. Fine, so we'll discuss it. No page has been missed, so don't worry. Okay. Sir, please evaluate the answers also. Each day we are writing. Guys, with respect to the evaluation, right now, to be very frank, I don't have the bandwidth because many of you might be knowing that I am a full-time faculty in one of the institute here in Delhi. So right now I am not having any faculty bandwidth to evaluate. If I'll get it in few days, I'll surely be doing that thing. Okay. Now let's discuss the next article. Okay. Fine, first we'll discuss the ECI article and then we'll discuss the domestic ideology article. Okay. So don't lure, persuade. This article we'll see with respect to the GS paper number 2, GS paper number 2, electoral reforms, GS paper number 2, electoral reforms. Now, basically guys, in the past days, first of all, let's take the background little bit. In the past days, we have seen this thing that the freebie issue had came repeatedly in the news. In the past days, the freebie issue had come repeatedly into the news, where it's being provided that the political parties are making many of the irrational promises, and as they are making the irrational promises, fine, it is leading to the pressure onto the it is leading to the pressure onto the finances and such kind of a things. In the name of such kind of a thing, populism or such kind of a things are being given to the people. So here the Election Commission of India has suggested some kind of a reforms. We'll see these reforms, and after seeing these reforms, we'll connect this particular thing with the freebie issue. Let's discuss first of all the reform that has come. First of all, you know this particular thing that when the elections are notified, after that the model code of conduct comes in place. Now, what the model code of conduct is? Model code of conduct basically aims to provide the level playing field. It puts certain of the restrictions in terms of the electoral activities that is allowed, that is not allowed. For example, when the model code of conduct comes in the place, the ruling government cannot announce a new project. They cannot announce new schemes. Why? Because it will give them a kind of a more advantage, and the people who are contesting, they will face a kind of a, there will be a kind of an inequality with them that happen. Now, in the model code of conduct, already the Election Commission of India has provided that the political parties, they have to communicate to the electors the fiscal rationale for promising the delivery of goods and services. Fine. For example, a political party, while they were contesting for the elections, in the manifesto, they have announced that okay, we will give you free ROs, will give you free ROs, water purifiers. Now they have to tell into the manifesto that from where the money will come, how they'll procure these ROs, from where the money will come. This is something which is already provided into the electoral code, into the model code of conduct. Now, the Election Commission of India is proposing a kind of a performa for such kind of a disclosures, a detailed performa. Now, what is this detailed performa? Up till now, the political parties have to tell that from where they'll bring the money, but now they need to provide much more details whenever they are making a kind of a promise. For example, just I'll highlight it. The political parties, they need to provide they need to spell out that the section of society that a particular promise is targeted at. Okay, for example, you have promised to give the RO water purifiers. Which section is particularly it is being targeted at. You need to tell that particular thing very clearly. The extent of coverage and the number of likely beneficiaries. How many people will get benefit of that? The cost of implementing it, what money it will take to implement that particular program. Okay, how the required resources will be raised, how the required resources will be raised. So earlier only the political parties were telling from where they'll get the money, but now you need to provide a detailed disclosures surrounding all these kind of things. This is a new reform that the Election Commission of India wants to implement. Now, this particular idea also talks that apart from this, whenever the manifesto is being organized, the budgets expenditure, as well as outstanding liabilities should also be told to the people. For example, if you are from the state of Rajasthan, the government, the political parties which are contesting the election, they need to tell that, okay, what are the revenues that we are getting right now, what are the expenditure that a state is making right now, what are the debt of a state, what liabilities they have to pay. Okay, and in that particular thing, how new resources will be paid. All these particular things are to be now put in the election manifesto. Now, on the basis of this particular information, whether they are giving or not giving to the voters, fine, the manifestos will be assessed. Okay, the voter will assess the promises on the basis of these particular parameters, and it will give the voter more knowledge on whose basis the voter can make a choice. Fine, this is something that is happening. Moreover, the financial viability can also be assessed. Now, sometimes government, for guys, recently there was a report also that came that governments have made the electoral promises, but many of them has not been fulfilled up till now. Why? Because government say after promising that we don't have the money. So the voters themselves will assess that if a promise is being made, can it be fulfilled or not? How they will assess? Because when you tell them the status of the state's budget, their liabilities, their revenues, the voters will know whether it can be financed or not. So the financial viability of a manifesto, and whether the manifesto altogether is a good one or not, the voter will be able to assess that particular thing if this reform comes. Now, next thing that has been provided is that there is bound to be some resentment among the sections of the political class. Now, obviously, the political parties will not be very happy on this particular thing. Why political parties will not be happy? Because political parties will say that this is too much interference by the Election Commission of India into the nitty-gritties of the election. They'll say that their autonomy is getting compromised, and they'll say that Election Commission should not get into the nitty-gritty of the manifesto. Too much interference should not be done. Now, you see this particular thing that actually such kind of a decision that has been taken by the Election Commission of India, it is very, very important. It is very, very important. Why? Because of there was a S. Subramaniam judgment of 2013 that was given by the Supreme Court. Now, what is this judgment? See, the judgment, this petition was raised in 2013, where it was asked that whether the political party can promise the freebies, can promises the things such as the water coolers, mixer grinders, etc. or not. Now, Supreme Court in this judgment in 2013 provide that the political party can promise all such kind of things if they are being given from their budget, if they are being given out of their budget, or if these particular things are being cleared by the legislature. If these things are being cleared by the legislature, such kind of a promises can be made. It is not wrong. Okay, but at the same time, court said this thing, but extravagant promises should not be made. The promises which will disturb the level playing field, they should not be made. Moreover, the Supreme Court in 2013 in this judgment directed the Election Commission of India that they need to lay down some kind of a guidelines by which the political parties don't exploit whatever promises they are making. They should be rational. So some new guidelines should also be made. Okay, now guys, what has happened? This new guideline that the ECI has now given, it will make sure that many times the political parties which are making the irrational freebie promises, those kind of things don't happen. Those things come under a kind of a control. This is something that is being provided. Now, if this guideline gets implemented, if this particular guidelines get implemented, fine, such kind of disclosures will help in making the informed voter choices. Fine, rival parties, fine, they basically it has been provided that if such kind of a guidelines will come, automatically the rival political parties will do the scrutinies of their opposite parties. For example, suppose the BJP had come out with the manifesto and the Congress had come out with the manifesto. If there are the 10 conditions that are to be fulfilled, BJP might raise the questions onto the Congress manifesto that these 5 conditions have not been fulfilled, and the Congress will raise the questions onto the BJP's manifesto. So the rival political parties, they will do the intense scrutiny of the manifestos of each other. So this is something which is a very good reform that is being suggested by the this is a very good reform that is being suggested by the Election Commission of India, and it should be implemented immediately. Undue politicization of this particular matter should not happen. Fine. So very good article. I hope guys you have understood it, and now we'll move to the next article. Domestic ideologies in external sector. Okay, now let's take this particular article. Now what the article is talking about, guys, this particular article talks about the critical scrutiny of the speech that was made by the Minister of External Affairs in the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly. Okay, now let's discuss about this particular article. First of all, you don't need to go too much in the deep in this particular article, but because the speech of the MEA is being critically scrutinized, fine, the article doesn't talks about any trend or doesn't talks about any issue or any trend into the foreign policy, but the speech is being just critically analyzed. Fine. So basically it has been provided that the speech that has been made by the Minister of External Affairs in the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly, it has been applauded for the professionalism, precision that has been there. But there are certain issues which the author is talking about in this particular article. Author says that the Minister of External Affairs said that right now India's rejuvenation is taking place in a democratic framework. Okay, this is one expression that was said by the Minister of External Affairs. Now the author says that how right now the rejuvenation of India is happening. Already the Indian Republic has introduced the adult franchise, and this particular power is being exercised by the people in every election. So democratic framework is not something which has come today. Democratic framework was given in 1947 itself, and every year after 1951 onwards, people have participated in demographic framework. Fine. Then the next thing that is being talked about is that, guys, the Minister of External Affairs has talked about the Panch Pran of Amrit Kal. Now what are this Panch Pran? So basically in the Independence Day speech, the Prime Minister of India said that we need to take the Panch Pran, that is the 5 commitment. Now first commitment was the goal of developed India. We need to become a developed nation by 2047. Second Pran was remove any trace of colonial mindset. Third, take pride in our roots. Fourth, unity of India. And fifth pran, the sense of duty among the citizens. These are the Panch Pran. Now, the Minister of External Affairs has talked about the second pran, that is second promise. That is, Minister of External Affairs said that we will liberate ourselves from a colonial mindset. This is the second print that the Minister of External Affairs had said, and had said that this promise is not relevant to India but is relevant externally also. He said that externally it means we need to go for a reformed multilateralism. We need to go for reformed global governance. Fine. Now guys, basically the Minister of External Affairs, when made this particular speech, he said this particular thing that we need to get the liberation from the colonial mindset. If I'm saying that we need to get liberation from colonial mindset, it means that we are still today having the colonial mindset. So do India today is having the colonial mindset? Fine, that is something that is to be seen. It has been said that it is disturbing that we need to take the liberation from a colonial mindset, because India was the country in 1950s and 1960s who talked about the decolonization of the entire world. So how we are stuck into the colonial mindset? This is something that is there. Is it clear or not? Fine. This is something that has been there. Now the article is just criticizing the speech that has been given by the Minister of External Affairs. So therefore, you don't need to go too much into the detail. That just the point that we have discussed. Fine, just for your general awareness, fine, just for the sake of interest, you need to go that. Beyond that, it's not be there. Moreover, it has been provided that an entire generation of human rights workers in the US and South Africa were inspired by the Gandhiji non-violent anti-colonial struggle. So we always have broken the colonial mindset. Gandhiji has broken the colonial mindset in 1940s itself. Fine. So that is all about the article, and now we'll move to the next article. Can read talk Vyom Mitra's skills get a lift off with a digital grey matter? So now the article is talking about the Vyom Mitra, and this particular article will see with respect to the prelims examination as well as GS paper number 3, science and technology, space sector will see this article. Now, the article is guys talking about the humanoid Vyom Mitra. Humanoid Vyom Mitra. So what is a humanoid? Humanoid is a kind of a robot which looks like a human. Okay, so a robot which looks like a human, it is called as the humanoid. Now, the Vyom Mitra. Vyom Mitra is a humanoid that India has made. So Vyom Mitra, it is the humanoid or human robot that has been designed and developed by the ISRO, that is the Indian Space Research Organization, and this humanoid will fly on the first unmanned test flight before the Gaganyaan manned flight that will happen in 2024. Okay, so basically guys, in 2024, India is planning the Gaganyaan flight. Now, in this Gaganyaan program, Gaganyaan flight, India wants to demonstrate the capability of taking the astronauts into the space and bringing back these astronauts from the space. So, Gaganyaan program will demonstrate the human space flight where a crew will be sent to 400-kilometer low Earth orbit, and these crew will be brought back safely. Now, when this Gaganyaan manned flight will happen, before that, in order to test the viability of this entire project, an unmanned flight will also be carried, and that unmanned flight will be carried by the end of this particular year 2022. Recently, earlier it was for 2023, but now it has been said that it will be done in 2022. Now, when that unmanned flight will happen, will be conducted, in that unmanned flight, we need to send one robot which can send the commands, which can do the crucial operations that are needed there. And for that particular thing, the Vyom Mitra has been designed by the ISRO. So, Vyom Mitra is a human robot that will be sent onto the unmanned Gaganyaan flight. And after this unmanned Gaganyaan flight, there will be the manned Gaganyaan flight that will be carried in 2024. Now, basically, this humanoid Vyom Mitra has been designed by the ISRO, and one of the unit of ISRO, that is the IISU. IISU stands for ISRO Inertial Systems Unit, and this particular humanoid Vyom Mitra was unveiled in 2020. Now, this particular robot, it is a half humanoid. Half humanoid means that it doesn't have the lower limbs. Fine. Now, the IISU, it is responsible for the designing, development and integration of this particular robot. And apart from that, there is the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, Thumba, which has developed the fingers of this particular robot. Now, it is an artificial enabled robot. So that it means that it can learn from the patterns, it can learn from the information. This particular robot will fly aboard on the rocket. It will be able to withstand the vibrations, the shocks that will be carried during the flight. Okay, and this particular robot is designed to resemble the human. Okay, their facial expressions, their interactions will be much like with the human. Fine. It has a speech capabilities that it can talk with the ground crew. It has a sight capabilities, it can see the things, it can pass the information on the basis whatever it will observe. Then, basically, in the past few months, the IISU has integrated it with the computer brain. Find a new enhanced computer brain by which it got the capability to read the control panels. Okay, it can carry the communication with the ground station. This is something that has happened. So, more enhanced capabilities are now being given to the Vyom Mitra. Okay, so this is something which have been discussed by the Vyom Mitra. So guys, this is all the detail that you need to keep it in your mind, and for the prelims examination, this can be important, can be asked. So that is all guys about this particular article, and now we'll move to the next article. Okay, now India abstains on the Sri Lanka vote at the Human Rights Council. Now, by the way, we have already discussed this particular article in the yesterday's newspaper analysis, where we were discussing that yesterday, that is on Thursday, the vote in the United Nations Human Rights Council will happen. So that particular vote has been already conducted, and in that particular vote, India, what it has done, India has abstained from the voting. Fine. So if you have watched the video, very good, and if you have not, then we'll revise this particular thing again. So basically guys, when we talk about the Sri Lanka UNHRC issue, what is the Sri Lanka UNHRC issue? So basically we have discussed it yesterday also, but let's revise it very quickly. So I have told you that the Sri Lanka was a colony of the Britishers, and the Sri Lanka got independence in 1948 from the Britishers. At that point of a time in Sri Lanka, there were two type of people that were living. One was the Tamilians. Now these Tamilians were brought in the Sri Lanka after 1815, and these Tamilians were brought in Sri Lanka to work onto the plantation farms. Now in 1948, when the Sri Lanka got independent, there were the Tamilians that were living, and at the same time there were the Sinhalese who were the Buddhists. They were also living in in the Sri Lanka. Now, the constitution of Sri Lanka, it has discriminated with the Tamilian people. Citizenship, discrimination on citizenship were given. The rights were not given to them. Okay, autonomy were not given to the provinces of North and East where they were living. And because of such kind of a thing, it was seen as an injustice, and the Litte, that is the liberation tigers of Tamil Elam, was formed in 1976, and they wanted that all the rights and dignities of the Tamilians should be restored, and they started a kind of a confrontation with the government. Now, because of that particular thing, in 1987 there was the Indo-Sri Lanka Accord, or the Rajiv Jayawardene Accord, that was signed. And as a part of this Indo-Sri Lanka Accord that was signed, it was promised that 13th Constitutional Amendment Act will be implemented in Sri Lanka. Now this 13th Constitutional Amendment Act was aimed to give the rights, it was aimed to give the autonomy to the Tamilian people who were living into the north and the eastern part of the Sri Lanka. So 13th Amendment provided for the establishment of Provincial Council, it provided for the appointment and powers for the governor of provinces, membership and the tenure of provincial councils. So it was provided that provincial councils will be provided for the north and east. There Tamilian people will have the representation, they will be autonomous to take their own decisions. Fine. It was provided that the legislative powers will be given to these provincial councils. A finance commission will be established, which will give them the money, the funding. Fine. Tamil will be chosen as an official language for the north and east. Then English will be given as a link language. High court will be established. So all these things will be given to the Tamilian people by the 13th Amendment Act that was promised. Now you see this particular thing. As this 13th Amendment Act came, it was expected that by this the Litte will be pacified. It is a kind of a solution. But neither the Litte liked this particular thing, and the Sinhalese nationalist parties, they also did not like that thing. Sinhalese nationalist party said that it is too much that has been given, and Litte said that it is too little that has given. And after 1987, what happened? A civil war, a war between the Litte and the Sri Lankan government started. This civil war went for 1987 to 2009. And during that time, it has been alleged that the Sri Lankan government or Sri Lankan army, it has carried a lot of human right violations. People have been arrested, many of the civilians have been killed on the charge that they are supporting the Tamilian movement, and actually it has been called as a bloodbath. It has been called as a bloodbath. Now for that particular thing, in the United Nations Human Rights Council, which is a body of 47 members where India is also a member, in the UNHRC the resolution is moved against the Sri Lanka. This particular resolution says that the human rights violations have happened in the Sri Lanka. Now the countries either vote against this resolution. If they vote against, it means that no, in the Sri Lanka human rights violation did not happen. Some countries support it. Support means that yes, Sri Lanka had committed the human rights violations. Now this particular voting has happened into the past also. Now India voted against Sri Lanka in 2009, 2012, 2013. Fine. And which asked that human rights violations have happened. Okay. Now what had happened now? So basically presently coming to this article, so again in the UNHRC there was a new voting that was carried with respect to the Sri Lanka's role in this civil civil war that is going on. So basically what has happened now, India has abstained on the Sri Lanka vote at Human Rights Council. India has neither voted against Sri Lanka nor India has voted in favor of the Sri Lanka. But at the same time, India had said that the 13th Constitutional Amendment Act that we discussed here, the 13th Constitutional Amendment Act that was promised by the Sri Lanka into the past, that has not been finalized up till now. Now you see what India said. I'll read it and you will be able to make more sense of that. So what has happened? India has abstained from voting on the resolution on Sri Lanka at the United Nations Human Rights Council, and at the same time, fine, India has observed that while had observed that Sri Lanka's progress in implementing commitment on the 13th Amendment and early provincial elections remains inadequate. We said that okay, right now we are not voting against the Sri Lanka, nor we are supporting the Sri Lanka, but we are not happy with the progress on 13th Amendment. It has not been done up till now. Fine, India says that we want that the entire Sri Lankans, they achieve prosperity, they should be happy. Okay, and India had said that India is a neighbor of Sri Lanka. So therefore, as India is a neighbor of Sri Lanka, India had substantially contributed to the relief, rehabilitation and resettlement of the Sri Lankans post 2009 war that had happened. In the past we have supported Sri Lanka, even now we are supporting the Sri Lanka, and we believe, India had said that we believe that the progress towards the 13th Constitutional Amendment Act that remains inadequate. The government will work on that particular thing. Now, when we talk about this particular resolution which have been moved, it was titled as Promoting Reconciliation, Accountability and Human Rights in Sri Lanka. Now, I told you that in UNHRC there are 47 members. So what has happened? 20 of its 47 members have voted in its favor. Voted in favor means that they have voted in favor that the Sri Lanka had committed the human right violation. So voting in favor of resolution means vote against Sri Lanka. 20 countries have abstained. So 20 countries have not voted. India also have abstained. Fine. 7, including China and Pakistan, have voted against it. Voted against the resolution means supporting the Sri Lanka. They have voted against the resolution. They said that no, Sri Lanka had not went for any human right violation. Fine. So this resolution called upon the government of Sri Lanka to ensure the prompt, impartial investigation, okay, on the human right violations. Fine. Serious violation of international humanitarian laws that have happened in the past. So this is something that has happened, guys, in this particular direction. Fine. Now, when we talk about the India-Sri Lanka relations, you see this thing that Sri Lanka happens to be a very important partner for India in the India's neighborhood first policy. Sri Lanka plays a very important role. Moreover, in the past we have seen that the China has made more cooperation with the Sri Lanka. China has docked their ships in the Sri Lankan ports. Okay, so we want that the Sri Lanka should be on the side of India. But at the same time, when we talk about Tamil issue happens to be a very important issue for India. And if the Sri Lanka is not implementing the 13th Constitutional Amendment Act, from time to time, we also need to show our displeasure against the Sri Lanka also. And how to show the displeasure? By abstaining. Now, India could have supported Sri Lanka, but we did not support it. Why? Because we are not happy. And India could have voted against Sri Lanka, but that will become too harsh. And if we'll do that thing, Sri Lanka will go near to the China. So neither we have become too harsh, nor we have given the support when we were obviously not happy. We have taken a middle path, we have abstained. Okay, so that is all, guys, about this particular article, and now we'll move to the next article. Okay, UK Home Secretary links FTA to concerns over immigration. Now, guys, I tell you in most of the classes that you need to understand that which articles are needed to be read in deep. For example, every article we are seeing the background, then that particular thing, then the way forward. But some articles you just need to see in the headlines. For example, this particular article. Now, just understand, I'll tell you a little bit of a background. So basically, right now, the India and UK are negotiating on a free trade agreement, FTA. So the negotiations of this particular FTA is going on, and in coming a few months time, the FTA will be signed. Now, as this FTA is going on, there are some comments from time to time that are passed, either sometimes from the India, sometimes from the UK, that okay, India says that okay, we expect this, UK say that we'll expect from this. So all these comments are not needed to be traced. Fine. All these comments are not needed to be traced. So in this particular line, what has happened? So UK's Home Secretary, okay. So what has happened recently? The UK's new Home Secretary had threw a dampener. Dampener means anything which slows down a process or anything which reduces the enthusiasm in a process. So what they have done? They have said that she would not back the deal if it involved increased immigration to the UK. Now you see this particular thing. The UK had said this particular thing that that UK had seen a lot of migration, fine, and the largest group of people who are migrating into the UK are the Indian migrants. And the UK had said this particular thing that these Indian immigrants, fine, they have overstayed. They have overstayed. Is it clear or not? And they say that Indian people, many of the Indian immigrants that had come to the UK, their number should not increase because it is creating a pressure on the UK where most number of migrants are coming. Now what UK had said that if in this particular FTA there is any provision by which more immigration will increase in UK, more Indians if they will come to the UK by the help of this FTA, if there is some provision in this particular FTA, then the UK will not support, will not back this particular FTA. So they have a concerns over the immigration, more number of Indians that are getting the entry into the UK. They are not happy with that particular thing. So this is the some concerns that they have put forward. Now let's see that what India will do. Let's see what India will do into the future. Okay, so just we'll see that what will happen. No need to go too much into the detail in this particular article. Now moving on. World Bank pairs India's financial year 23 growth to 6.5%. Okay. Now, basically, guys, when we talk about the growth rate of a country, let's say India, even, so sometimes World Bank, sometimes the World Bank, sometimes the IMF, or sometimes any credit rating agency such as the Moody's, from time to time they give an estimate that at what rate India will grow. So the World Bank, it has projected that India's growth rate will be 6.5% in financial year 2023. Okay. Now basically, it earlier the estimate that was given for the India's growth, it was higher. Okay. So earlier, basically it has been provided that the estimate for the current year was revised due to the persistent pressure that Indian economy is facing. So right now there is the high inflation. Right now there is high inflation. FPI outflows are going on. We have discussed already these particular things. So because of the high inflation, the India's growth rate has been reduced to 6.5%. It is 1% lower. It is 1% lower. Earlier it was 7.5%. Now it has been reduced to 6.5%. It is said that next year India's growth will increase from 6.5% to 7% a year in the next fiscal year, and after that it will again go to 6.1%. So 6.5% in financial year 23, then it will go to 7%, and then it will again come to 6.1%. Okay, but I'll advise you that you don't need to make notes of this particular thing. Fine. Why? Because these kind of estimates will change every coming month. Fine. So after some days, if inflation will become more problematic, these data will change. If inflation will improve, this data will again change. So these are time to time estimates that are given. You don't need to go too much into the detail. Fine. Now moving to the mains practice question for today. So guys, today's practice question is from the GS paper number 3, and it is talking about the moon lightning in India that we have discussed. So the question reads, what do you understand by the moon lightning phenomena which has been recently in the news? Fine. Do you think it could be a win-win phenomena for both employees and employers? Fine. So you need to write on this particular thing. So that is all, guys, about the mains questions for today. And with this, we come to an end to the today's newspaper analysis. Is it clear or not? So guys, I hope that you are understanding the articles. Fine. So I believe that you are getting the utility of this particular session. And guys, if you are liking the video, please show a little bit big heart, and please like the video. Please do comment on the videos. Fine. So please do like the video, because when you like the video, it gives a moral booster to us. Fine. It further pushes us to work even more harder. Fine. So making a video every day, 1.5 hour video, and doing a research for 4 to 5 hours, it really needs some motivation. So your likes serves as a motivation to us. So please support us in that particular line. Thank you so much. Now we'll be meeting tomorrow. Till then, guys, take care of yourselves. Thank you so much.